And yeah, I just thought that bioblitz was a really good topic to start with because bioblitz, it kind of touches on lots of different aspects of taking action for nature. So first of all, getting to know really well what wildlife you've got in your area, but then also working with volunteers, getting the community involved, organising an event. It just ticks so many different boxes. I thought it was a really good place to start. So I'm not going to go on any more than that. I'm just going to hand over. We've got two guest speakers this evening. The first one is Aimée Moretti from TCV, and she's going to talk in particular about the sort of citizen science side of organising a BioBlitz event. And then we're going to hand over to Natalie Sinclair from Wild Bannockburn, which is a community group which have done lots of really successful BioBlitz events over the past few years. So we'll hear from both of them. And then what we'll do is we'll have questions and answers together as a group at the end. And obviously, if there's anybody here tonight that also has experience of running a BioBlitz event, we'd love to hear your stories as well. It's kind of like an open discussion. So we'll keep all that for the end. But also throughout, if you've got questions and stuff, feel free to stick them in the chat as well. So I think that's enough for me, and I'll hand over to Aimée for just now.
Make sure my mic's off before I start talking. Hi everybody, I'm just gonna get my slideshow set up. Okay, so as was said, I work for the conservation volunteers. I have done so for the past, oh God, 2.5 years, and I've just taken over the role that coordinates our citizen science programme that works all across Scotland. Previously, I'd worked in projects that were more focused on green health and wellbeing in North Lanarkshire and a little bit of Glasgow Council. But I'm really excited to do the citizen science work because it's stuff that I'm interested in personally and always would help out my colleague with it whenever I had a spare moment. So, like was mentioned, I'm going to share some information on citizen science recording, what it is, what makes a good record, and a little bit on how it can benefit a community. But I think Natalie's going to talk more about that and her successes. So yeah, we'll just get started. So if you haven't heard the phrase citizen science before, it just refers to anybody who voluntarily contributes, pardon me, their time towards scientific research, whether for a specific project or just for public use. So things like the RSPB's Big Garden Birdwatch, that's a citizen science project. There's lots of academic disciplines that use data gathered through citizen science, not just ecology and biology, but health and medical science, astronomy, history, and social sciences as well. So anybody can be a citizen scientist. That's the great thing about it. And there's no one way of doing it as well. It can be very flexible and you can dedicate as much or as little time. You can focus on going out and taking records of things, or you can focus more on sitting behind a laptop or computer or phone and actually identifying things if that's a specific skill set that you have or a specific interest that you have. So what makes a good record? There's 4 things to consider when you're making a good record, and that's who, what, when, and where. And if you have these 4 pieces of information, then it makes your record much more reliable and it shows that you've taken the time to identify something, not just snapped a picture of it or seen a bird whiz past you in the sky and, taking a guess at what it is. It just helps build up trust between you and record centres. So it's important to know who is making the record, so the individual or the group that is submitting something, and knowing this can help build trust and familiarity within recording communities, as I said. So that's why it's important on things like iNaturalist that you use at least your first name. You don't have to use your full name, because then if something's questionable, if you're seeing something that's maybe uncommon, people are able to contact you. Obviously, to make a good record, you need to know what it is that you've seen. Common names of species are good enough. If you can get to a scientific name, that's also beneficial. But even I just focus on getting to common names because that's, I'm going to get much further with common names than I am with Latin names. When have you made the record? So the date and the time that the species was seen. It's especially useful if you're seeing something at a time when you wouldn't be expecting to see it. So, for example, say you caught an image of a hedgehog at 1 o'clock in the afternoon in the dead of winter when it should be hibernating. It's important to know the date and time in that scenario because that tells us that something's happened in that hedgehog's life, in that hedgehog's hibernation, to its habitat that is worth looking into. And the where is also important. You want to be as specific as you can. However, obviously, most instances for things like rare or protected species, you don't, that information wouldn't be getting shared to the wider public. But you want to be as specific as you can. A lot of phones, if you're using an app, have the geodata within the record that you're submitting, so you don't really need to think about it. But if you do use pen and paper, if you're doing a survey over a long period of time during the day, there's apps like OS Locate and What Three Words that can pinpoint locations. Or there's also the OS Locate map gets you to a 6 or to an 8 figure grid reference. And there are other things that you would want to consider as well when you're recording information, such as habitat. Is the species you're looking at mutated? Is it growing in an unexpected way? Its life stage. Is it a larva, a chick, an adult? Is it a dead specimen? The population, the number of how many birds, how many plants, or whatever you're seeing, if they're male or female, if you're able to, if they're birds, if they're male or female, to get to that identification level. It's just it's like the way I describe it is the more information you can give, you're colouring in a fuller picture, and that just makes it more valuable to the people on the other end who use that data and can apply it to their projects and to whatever it is that they're working on, for example, planning applications, or things like that. And just as a little example, here is an image of a plant which I found, and I was going through, working through the BSBI's Identiplant training course at the time. So I was noticing the wildflowers around me more and more, and I was really confused as to what this was. And when I looked into it, I found out that it was a mutation of a buttercup. So it was a bit of a confusing time, but it's still a good record to have, and also just an incredible thing to see because it looks like a carnation, so it's very interesting, and that's why you need to take your time to analyze what it is that you're looking at. It can appear as one thing, but really it's another. And yeah, just another example of a good record. So you've got the who, myself, what am I recording? It was trumpet lichen. When was it observed? So I took the picture at 12:07 on the 7th of October 2024, but I didn't submit the recording until a minute later, just because I was looking through the different specimens that iNaturalist in this instance had thrown up, trying to identify it as closely as possible. And then the where, which was Gartcosh Local Nature Reserve. So if you use iNaturalist, you could go in and find that specimen using that location tag. But that's just an example of a record using iNaturalist, which is what I personally tend to use the most. And I'm just going to whiz through a couple bits here. So there's loads of identification apps that you can use. Some prefer certain ones over others. It's really just dealer's choice. These are apps that are purely for identification purposes. They do not record. They do not submit their recordings to the NBN Atlas, which is where you want all the records to funnel into eventually. And obviously there's also loads of physical identification sources as well, like books and guides. Yeah. Onto recording apps. The two main ones are iNaturalist and iRecord. iNaturalist is a pretty good beginner intermediate app to use, and you do need to give it permission to send data to the NBN Atlas. Um, but it's really easy to use, helps you get to your ID, and it's really good for bioblitzes because you can create projects that you can then um, adjust the parameters of. So you can say, we want any record made within this space, within this date to be submitted into this project, and then you can go and look at it, which is the part of it that's useful for bioblitzes. Or for long-term projects, you can say that you want any record from this area compiled into this project, and people who are maybe just driving past and see something or stopping by and see something, their record would still get submitted. It doesn't have to be somebody that's consistently identifying in that area. The cons of iNaturalist are that the records must have a photo, otherwise they cannot be verified. Um, and each submission has to have two other users uh, approve or also identify your specimen correctly to then go on and become research grade. And then with iRecord, that's more of an intermediate expert level. Again, it does submit to the NBN Atlas, but you do need to give permissions. Records don't need a photograph, and every record is checked by an official verifier. However, in my experience, in my opinion, it's not an incredibly user-friendly app. It's much more complex, and you kind of need to know, well, not kind of, you do need to know what you're looking at before you can submit anything. So both are equally great options. Some people prefer one over the other and never use the other one. Like I say, it really is just dealer's choice. And the NBN Atlas, sorry, I should have said, is like um if you imagine all of these different recording apps and recording centers, all the information and data collected by them funnels into the NBN Atlas, which is what ecologists and things like that will use to do desk surveys and things like that for any projects that they're working on. I'm gonna zoom through this bit because this is just these are bits of information that if I had longer I would talk about, but this is all going to get sent to you so you can look into it. And of course, you can always record using pen and paper. You can use a recording sheet like the one on the screen here, or if you're just out and you're realizing you're actually seeing some things of interest that you weren't expecting to see, you can just start taking a record on your own. The record sheets that you can get from your local biological record centre, they tend to all have their own, and it'll have their information on it of what to do once you're finished with the form. Normally an address or an email address for you to send the information to. But it's pretty much the same information, asking for the same information as I mentioned before. The date, the location, the species name, any comments, any noticeable or sorry, notable features, how many were seen, who's the person that saw it. Yeah. And I think the most important thing and what I want to leave on is just start recording anytime you're out for a walk and something sparks your interest. Like um records are stronger when there's years and years and years worth of them. Um, Not only to show that nature has been there that whole time and has either declined or inclined or has had population changes, but it also shows that there's people in that area who care about it and who have kept an eye on the nature surrounding them. Um, it's a great thing to do as a community. It's a great thing to do with children. It's just a great thing to do, full stop. So that was a very whistle stop tour of this presentation that normally does last about uh normally goes on for like 45 minutes. But I'm also eager to hear what Natalie has to say, so I'll pass over to her or back to Jill, whichever's happening.
I was just going to say thank you so much, Amy. Like I'm already got questions about like how do you take this and then turn it into a big community event? But I guess hopefully Natalie can answer that question, so we'll hand over straight to you.
Amazing. So I'm just going to share my screen and make sure that that's shared with you. I'll just be 1 wee second. And then we swap it. That's right, Jill. So
Yeah, just need to get it full screen.
and
And then it's going back to that same view again. So just change the display settings.
okay. Oh, look, you're getting a little whistle stop tour of what you're going to see. Let's get this back to the beginning. I'm going to cover a lot in 15 minutes, as you can see. And then you said swap it. Is that right?
Right, so that's what you did. Yep, there you go. Perfect.
Amazing. Okay, hello everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak today, Jill. And also thank you for the flexibility. I was very, very ill on our original date and had to cancel. I couldn't even get out of my bed. So thank you for everyone being very flexible. I'm going to speak to you today about the Bannockburn bioblitz, my baby. And I'm going to start by giving you a little introduction to me and how I got to this stage of doing the Bannockburn bioblitz. And then I'm going to show you how we've grown in the last 4 years and we're now in our 5th year. Yeah, I am, as you can hear, like many of you here today, I'm from Scotland and it can look like this. And I'm a biologist. I've studied many different types of animals, including this water rail, a very elusive freshwater bird that makes calls like a pig squealing. Anyone seen any of those? So I put out recorders to listen to these. And I've also done some field work in Shetland and Orkney for my master's, where I researched these guillemots, looking at their nocturnal behaviour. And we found out some really interesting things through looking at them through these photo boxes that were on the side of a cliff. And you can see just here, this is in the dead of night in the moonlight, you can see all these guillemots on the cliff. So we found out some really interesting things by me counting painstakingly many guillemots, and we found that they were attending the stack during the nighttime, which was new. And for my PhD, I went to the Cook Islands to study humpback whale songs. So those pig squeals served me well, and I went to the Cook Islands and with a grant from National Geographic. My PhD was funded by the Carnegie Trust for the Universities of Scotland, and I was incredibly lucky to do that. I was whirling around the world, doing amazing things, seeing whales, and I also got a love for science communication and connecting people with their environments. And I loved learning about the whales from the people. Their whales in the Cook Islands was amazing. Also speaking at events, and yeah, just love it. And even with this is a whale toy for, I don't know if anyone knows about Tony's, voicing this whale toy, and with my buddy Bonnie. All of that took me back in lockdown to where I came from, which is in Stirling, at Bannockburn. Sometimes I'm showing this to people who don't know about Bannockburn, but I'm sure a lot of you here do. Where there's a famous Battle of Bannockburn, where we were successful, finally, for a short time. And it's known very much for its history, but kind of forgotten about its nature. And I realised that I was so lucky I went to Bannockburn Primary, went to Bannockburn High, and then to go on to university. I was just so lucky to do what I did. And it took me coming back and going away and coming back and to really appreciate where I came from. And it's just this normal place with amazing people, and that maybe we need to focus a little bit more on how we can look after our nature. So I got thinking, especially as I was doing my once a day allowed out lockdown walk around the Bannockburn, and I was seeing all of this litter, and I got really, really frustrated. And I thought, okay, well, there's no point being frustrated. What can I do about this? How can I take all of that knowledge that I've learned in my care for the planet and put it back into my community? I got thinking on my little rock, and luck would have it, National Geographic were advertising a specific amount of funding from iNaturalist. So they used to, I'm not sure they are anymore, but they were one of the funders for iNaturalist. So what Aimée was telling you, one of these identification tools. And it was specifically for community community engagement. So I applied for that and got it. And then that was how the Bannockburn BioBlitz was born. It gave me a little bit of funding to get things going. Not to say that you always need funding, and we can discuss that at the end. And at the same time, it was running in conjunction with, this is another National Geographic explorer. His name is Jens, and he started the Home River BioBlitz, which is a network of BioBlitzes all across the world. So as Aimée was explaining, a BioBlitz is you choose one location and a specific time frame, and you go out and try to identify as many plants and animals as you can. And don't forget the mushrooms. So he put together this initiative where on one weekend every year across the world, there are BioBlitzes taking place at the same time. So I thought, why don't I do my Bannockburn BioBlitz in conjunction with this? And that got people in my community excited because it's really cool to think you're doing things at the same time as all these other places all over the world. So I got really good at using Canva to create some posters and logos, and it might have distracted me a little bit from my PhD, but I ended up integrating it into my PhD. So I evaluated its engagement outcomes, and I would accost some photographers that I met down the Bannockburn Trail to send me their beautiful photos. And just to show people, this is what we have on our doorstep. Like, this is right here. You don't need to go like a big drive to go somewhere. We have this right in our own Bannockburn Trail. As tiny as it is, all of these amazing animals are here. So I think we've got time. I'm going to show you, and hopefully I'll be able to share my sound. I'm going to show you a very short film. It's just 4 minutes long of the first Bannockburn BioBlitz. So you're going to see that I kind of did a twist on a BioBlitz. It wasn't just going out for a day and making lots of observations. I collaborated with a series of different conservation bodies who came and put workshops on. So it was a whole day out for the community, and I wanted it to be free. As I've kind of alluded to, and if some people know, like Bannockburn as an area, it's not the most well-off area, and I wanted to break down any barriers to participation. So I didn't want anyone to have to pay and anyone to have to travel. They can go there on their doorstep. And so I got other people on board to do workshops. So I'm just going to somehow do this. Let's be 1 wee second. So I've got it here. Do I have to do something special, Jill, to share my sound?
You might need to come out and then check your audio settings and come back in again, if you know what I mean.
Okay, do that.
Potentially, sometimes the sound doesn't work, and you need to like stop sharing, change your audio settings, and then share again. So if
Okay, so we
the
might as
sound
well
doesn't
do
work,
it
that might be
first.
it.
Okay, bear with. It's worth
So
it. It's a great video.
if you go to audio, like your little microphone, and then audio settings,
Yep. Audio settings.
and then there should be an option in there.
In audio to speakers, control. Or maybe it's when I share, it'll give me the option. Let's try it. If it doesn't work, I will share the YouTube video. It's on YouTube. Share sound, I found it. Okay.
Perfect. Okay, yeah, if you share again, it should work.
Okay. Can you see that?
Yep, we can see it now.
Okay, and then just let me know if the sound is okay. Might take a minute.
We are high in the hills to the west of Bannockburn, very, very close to the source of the Bannockburn, after which our town is named. And today we are having a bioblitz and some wildlife workshops down at the Bannockburn Heritage Trail. So I better get going. As you find something under a rock, something on a tree, and at the same time, if you took a picture of it on your phone, we can add that to the bioblitz. So that's what's really important. And this is happening everywhere else in the world right now on this day.
Oh, that's good.
And we're the only one in Scotland.
We've been here today as part of Bannockburn Bioblitz with our Pond Doctor event, telling people all about how to create, manage and restore ponds. And ponds are an incredibly important freshwater habitat, and lots more people can have them in their own gardens, which is then fantastic in expanding populations of amphibians and reptiles we find in Scotland.
Today we've been looking at workshops on river health and how we can make a difference by getting a bit of citizen science, getting communities involved. We've also been looking at pollinators and how we can increase areas to help our struggling invertebrates. In days of climate change, I think we can all play our part, and the more that we talk about this within our local communities, the more we can all be empowered to do that.
So today we are gathering leaves to create this wild art project. We've sorted them out by colour so that we can see the different variety of leaves that we have in this area. Mindful moments are super important. If we can just take a moment out of our day to take a deep breath into the bottom of our lungs, to take a moment to notice our surroundings and all the colours that might be here, to notice the sounds that we hear, the smells, using all of our senses, and to ground ourselves where we are, you will find some peace and calm in your day. We've just finished the Bannockburn Bioblitz today. So it's been a really successful event, engaging the local community of Bannockburn into caring about the environment and participating in citizen science.
The Bannockburn Bioblitz and the workshops today attracted more than 100 participants. It was a really great success, and it was amazing to see both adults and children reconnecting with our local burn. A number of people made observations in iNaturalist, and this will connect to the overall Home River Bioblitz network. But the work doesn't stop there. You can continue to use iNaturalist to record and identify species in our local area. We're looking forward to seeing you again next year.
I always have to wait for that little bit at the end. There's like an awkward wait. Okay, I always love sharing that. So I'm just going to swap back to my slide. Let me. So we will go back to, I can't do two things at once, so sorry. I'd love to be able to talk to you and do this, but I can't. I'm going to share this again. And then do the swappy thing. And then swap. Okay, thank you for indulging me to share about the Bannockburn bioblitz. So that was the first year, and as you see, we had so many people there, and a lot of the older people in the community, including my mum, which she will hate me saying right now, she hears me. She was saying that she hadn't seen anybody in the burn like that for so long, and when they were little, they would go to the burn and play, and people were really connected with it. And especially for the Bannockburn, it's in our name, yet people are just not connected with it. There's litter and people are just leaving stuff. Not everybody, obviously, but it really reconnected people with what our whole town is built around, which is really, really beautiful. So I decided that I didn't want it to be a one-time thing. And the next year, so here are just some pictures of the kids during the river dipping session, which I think is everybody's favourite part of the day. It's really, really beautiful. You see the kids playing. We also had the Butterfly Conservation Trust come in the following year. So we're now in our 5th year. So we've had 4 years of the Bannockburn bioblitz, and every year we have more people coming and a combination of the same stakeholders, and we always have an art project. And these are kind of the group photos from each year. So just showing some of the people there. It's the 2nd year, the 3rd year, and we had our giant butterfly wings that I painted, and everybody we asked the community members, like, what does nature mean to them? And then they'd all make their own butterfly. And then last year the butterflies got bigger. So yeah, it's been a really, really big success. And I think this is just to illustrate, you don't have to obviously make it into a massive event where you have all these workshops. You can do it at any scale you want. So I think the lesson from this is that you can be really creative. You can it's really nice to know what the kind of parameters of a bioblitz could be and what other people have done, but you can then think, how does it suit my community? How am I actually going to get people excited to come out? And for me, I thought that collaborating with other organizations for them to bring their workshops was a really cool way, because it was something different. Everyone's always looking for something to do on a Saturday. So we're always doing a Saturday during the summer. And I think that sometimes if you're too rigid with, oh, we have to do it precisely this way, and that might not suit your community. So this kind of managed to do 2 things at once. And I think what also really worked with this is that I'm from Bannockburn, and I was living in Bannockburn. So it's like I'm walking around there every day with my dog, and I really understand what it's like to be there. So it's the power of being inside and connecting with everyone around you, which I think is what made it really successful. So my next step, I want to continue doing the Bannockburn bioblitz, but I want to somehow create a blueprint or something so that someone in another community can create that for themselves. So if anyone's interested in that, then I'm happy to talk more, and we can chat in the discussion. Also, I think lastly, I want to say, I mentioned about getting grants and things. You don't always have to do that. I think a bioblitz can be done for free. And I think as well collaborating with people. I obviously got a video made, and a friend did that for like mates rates for me. And then I had some printing costs, but you really can do it for really cheap. And I think it's just having the know-how of how to do it. And that's why I want to create a blueprint so that people can replicate it themselves. So thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to chatting with you.
Oh, brilliant. Thanks so much, Natalie. And thanks, Aimée, as well. That was really, really inspiring. And yeah, I'm feeling very fired up. So if people have questions, there's not a huge group. I think if you've got a question you'd like to ask, you can put it in the chat if you want, or even just raise your hand and I'll unmute people. And also, like I said at the beginning, if any of you have got stories you want to share, either if you've organised a BioBlitz or if you even just like attended one and you've got an experience, good or bad, that you want to share as well, like please feel free to chip in and join the conversation as well. I think I'll start with a question that I noted, which kind of is maybe one for both of you. That it just kind of got me thinking about Aimée, like what you were saying about like the importance of kind of getting really accurate records and all the level of detail that you need. And then how do you kind of square that with trying to create like a really fun, engaging, family-friendly event? Like, I mean, what would you say, Aimée, first to that? Like how do you kind of get that balance between like ensuring you're getting all the information you need while also like, you know, letting kids get involved, for example?
It's a very good question, and I think bioblitzes and kind of nature events like that can serve two purposes. They can serve the purpose of recording and collecting data, or slash engagement and education for younger children, or younger people. I don't really have an answer, if I'm honest. I'm just now thinking about it for the first time, really. But obviously, you know, a lot of kids will come with their guardians or parents and things like that. So I often have I'll talk about iNaturalist and have a piece of information on how to use that, but I'll also have like paper sheets with me as well to try and that prompts people. Um, and you can send it into the record centres, and it's just a thing of like practice. Like the more you do it, the more you'll know what to be looking out for and what bits of information to include. But if you know you do a BioBlitz and you get 10 people who actually submit records throughout the day, but you have 20, you know, children come along on their summer holidays who just go out and connect with nature and stand in a pond in their wet wellies, then it still served its purpose, in my opinion. Other people would say otherwise, but I don't, my belief, my stance on it is it doesn't have to be any black or white thing. It can be a myriad of colours, and yeah, it's just about, at the end of the day, engagement.
Yeah, I totally agree, Amy. I think and it is a hard balance, and I think that one might take precedent, but I have a similar ethos where
Oh, I think is Natalie frozen for other people?
Yeah.
Oh, we've lost her. She'll maybe come back in a wee second. Okay, well, while we're waiting on that, Nick's asked a question in the chat, which is, if members of the public rock up to a BioBlitz for the first time, do they need a lot of supervision? Which I guess is kind of linked to that idea of like, to get the good recordings, do they need
a lot
supervised?
of people connect with.
Well, I'll just go ahead.
Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead. Hopefully get it back.
So they need a lot of supervision. You don't always know where people are coming up from, rocking up from. It could be, you know, you could talk to somebody and it turns out they're actually a really keen bird watcher, or they're really clued up on their fungi. So you will get people who just know their stuff and they'll want to come along and only record the thing that they are interested in. And sometimes for things like lichens and bryophytes, it's great if you can have somebody come along that's super interested in them, because at times, depending on what it is, the reason that you're doing the BioBlitz, they're one of the better indicators of like air quality and things like that. But I think if a member of the public is choosing to spend their time at a BioBlitz, then you know, they've already made a choice there. And the only kind of supervision, like normally I would have like a stall, an information stall, just telling people, showing people what it is that we're doing, what we're expecting of them, and then you're there at the end of the day or the end of their time with you to hand in the sheets that you give them out. We also have like guides and things like that. So I've never experienced an issue with supervision in that regard. Maybe if you're working on a site that maybe has a bit more protection or like rare and protected species or boundary issues, things like that, you may need to add a little bit more in with regards to keeping out of certain areas or certain behaviours to kind of monitor. But I haven't had any issues with members of the public coming along to not just bioblitzes, events in general. They're at the end of the day choosing their time to spend their time with you. So they're already interested and they're already they've got that hat on, I think. I hope that kind of answers it.
Yeah. Sorry, we lost you for a wee minute there, Natalie, so we didn't hear your answer, but
I
Aimée was
can,
just talking to the question in the chat, which is kind of linked to anyway, so if you want to repeat what you were saying before you get cut off.
yeah, no problem. Sorry about that. It just disappeared. I was like, where is everyone? So yeah, the first question was about balancing getting records and people connecting with nature and kind of, especially with younger children or people who aren't as savvy with using iNaturalist or whatever. And I totally agree with Aimée that I would err on the side of trying to get people engaged and being creative with that. And I was saying that you could be really regimented and have maybe 5 to 10 people who turn up to do perfect recordings in iNaturalist. And those people are usually going to be people who are already engaged, who are already advocates for nature, which is amazing. We love that. But we want to get more people caring for nature. And to do that, we have to make it exciting for them. And one way to do that is to have workshops. And even if you do say, I've had 100 people turn up to the Bannockburn BioBlitz and 20 of those people might upload to iNaturalist, it's still a better turnout than like 5 to 10 people who are already engaged doing that. And then I think following on from this question, so I did do my events where people didn't have to sign up before they came. So I never knew how many people were going to come. And I wanted that way because, again, I wanted it to be as inclusive as possible. I wanted people to have the flexibility to come if and when they wanted to. And so you kind of saw me like in that video kind of anxiously waiting at the beginning. I was like, I don't know who's going to turn up today, if anyone. And I had made a iNaturalist guide, which I can share with you if you like, where it just kind of like walks you through downloading the app, how to make an account, and how to make your first observation, and how to make sure it's in view, basically how to make the simplest accurate recording. And iNaturalist has built into it that it can use AI to determine what the species is, and then it's verified by the community. So even if you don't know what the species is, it'll have like a very close match in a picture. And so even if that's wrong, it's going to be verified by the community later. So I think that's kind of the magic of using iNaturalist, that it is very accessible. And also, I think that, so that removes the supervision that I think the person was asking about. So I think that, and if the person is new to the area, so on the other side, so I had one side with the iNaturalist guide, and on the other side, I had a map, which I made in basically a glorified version of Paint. And it was of the,
No, we've lost it again. No. That's a really interesting. I wanted to know more about that map. It sounds like a brilliant idea. Oh, you're back.
I'm so sorry. When did it stop?
You were telling us about the map. It sounded really interesting.
Yeah, so there's a map, and it's another way of kind of, if people were not familiar with the area, it would show you specific spots where you could go. And then the last thing I had, so they were handed the map, which was very colourful, and on the back was the guide, and then they got handed another A5 piece of paper, which was a bioblitz bingo. And so on this, we had, so that's what I was giving the wee girl in the video. And on it, it would have like something under a rock, something on a tree, something in the river, like all these, pardon me, burn, like all these different things. And they would have to cross them off. And then on the other side of that, I had a few questions. So I had my engagement questions so that I could somehow lace it into my PhD and my supervisor not hate me for just frolicking down the burn. So I think, again, you can be creative with very simple things. And then I just used a little bit of my budget. My main part of my budget each year is used for printing, because I find these things really, really, really helpful. And I think I could, like last year, I applied for some funding, and then, as you can tell, I do a million things and I lost my receipts and I couldn't even claim it back, but it wasn't that much. So I was happy to pay for it. So I think you can do it on a like tiny, tiny budget. As long as I cover my costs for printing, because I also advertise it around the community. So I make little posters, laminate them, and put them on like lights and stuff. Even as once the police were going by, and I was like, this is fine because it's for nature. So yeah, I think there's different ways. I'll stop talking.
Well, I see we've got another question in the chat, but just because you mentioned budget, I'm just going to quickly ask one of my questions, which is, see, that first year when you were applying for the iNaturalist grant, did you have to set up Wild Bannockburn as like a constituted group in order to do that?
No, so because I accessed that funding because I was already a National Geographic Explorer, and it was only open to explorers, that pot of funding.
Okay.
And it was a small amount. It was like $2,000, which was amazing. But it came to me as an individual to be used for that purpose. And that is now something that I'm exploring, because if I want to attract larger grants to do more things, either with Wild Bannockburn or rolling it out to other areas, I'm stealing your thunder, Scottish Wildlife Trust, but we're going to work together. It's going to be awesome. Then I would have to be an entity. So I've explored being like a SKIO or a community interest company or something. But no, answer is no. It could come to me. However, I was already had in an area, but you can get other types of grants which can come directly to you. So for instance, I've applied to Stirling Educational Trust. So you get educational trusts in different areas depending on where you are. That you could apply for, and that was a few £100. And I also applied to the British Ecological Society. So there's lots of different places where you can apply as an individual who wants to put something on for their community, just finding them. I don't know if the Scottish Wildlife Trust has any funding for that kind of thing.
Sometimes. The money's always a bit tight these days, but yeah, that's really interesting, because I think that is one of the biggest barriers a lot of the time, is that to get funding you've got to already be an established group, and then it's like, well, how do you get yourself set up without? Yeah, it's a bit of a kind of tricky.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that and I was in a very lucky position where I'd already made these contacts through my research, to be able to then get the community funding. So I think, that can be really tricky. And that's something that I think when I'm putting together this blueprint, I need to think about how can community members, like from within their communities, then access something that's going to allow them to do it. But perhaps that's how I could, maybe that's the way that, I need to think about that, I think.
Yeah, great. I'd see that Kirsten asked another question in the chat, which is, do you have to consider risk assessments, for example, having kids around work? I mean, I know the answer to that is yes, but I don't know if you want to kind of Aimée, maybe expand on that, like what kind of prep you should do in terms of health and safety before you run this kind of event.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a big question. Like, it depends a lot, I guess, on the site that you would be running a bioblitz on, who owns the site, if it's owned by the community, if it's a variety of different landowners. You may need to get permission to do any event on there. But within TCV, we just have like a tick box thing with hazard, like the activity, and then hazards, and I can't remember the next term, but like mitigations. Um, and there's so many resources online for risk assessments. You could find one easily, or you could just write one up yourself. Um, you could also potentially like contact people, because at the end of the day, it's all in the interest of health and safety. I found that people are usually quite open to sharing their risk assessments for similar activities or for the specific site if you know of any work that's been done on it. But yes, you do have to consider risk assessments. Like Natalie kind of said, you don't know who's turning up. You don't know their physical abilities. You don't know, you just don't know. I'm not even gonna like start listing things. You just don't know who's showing up. Um, and so you do need to kind of cover that with a risk assessment. Usually, from experience, we'll have it like at the main stall on the day, so that people can go through it if it is something that they're concerned about, um, or if it's an area that has a lot of, like, it's uneven ground and there's a lot of divots and things like that, we'll mention it. But if you stood there and, done your whole risk assessment spiel to everybody that came up to attend your event, that would be all of your time gone. You would get to record anything. So yes, you do have to consider it. There are so many free resources online, and again, reaching out to like things within your area, organizations or whatever in your area that have done similar things, um, is worth a shout as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm getting the
yeah, just
questions that are like,
like
is
we have
everything in
templates as
discussion?
well and things. Yeah, it's a huge topic. I mean, on that, Natalie, like kind of linked to that. I mean, did you, because you were kind of setting people wild in a sense around Bannockburn, giving them a map and saying go mad, like did you have like people, like how many volunteers did you need to kind of get on board to like kind of manage that, and did you have like people stationed around the town? Like you sound like you did a huge amount of work yourself, but you must have had people helping you out.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like on the day, so on the day I like begged my friends to come, and I had them kind of, well actually, because even though it was the Bannockburn bioblitz, we focused on a specific area of the burn. So people were not that far away from each other. So we were, and that's what the map covered. It was just this area of the burn, and we had signs up to show people this is the end, like come back. And I was very clear with people, both in the advertising online and when people arrived, that they're like, especially kids, were not like, they're not my responsibility. Like they're with adults. They have to be with an adult. They're not being left. This is not like a like a
Fresh.
yeah, it's not a creche. Like they have to be with adults. And also had a disclaimer on the online advertising, and also on the back of the form that people were given, that we were not liable. However, with some of the conservation bodies that were there, like Bug Life and Frog Life, they all had their public liability insurance. So that kind of covered me overall, because each of them had it, because they were present as well. So it was kind of I learned a lot as the years went on. And then I got my own public liability insurance, which wasn't that expensive. So you can kind of work that into your budget, because you can get that for quite cheap for an area, as long as you have these disclaimers. And I think I also contacted the council, so the area that I was, because I was like kind of learning on the go, like how do I do this? how do I go about doing this? I just want to bring people in my community together, and I don't want all this red tape that stops me from doing that, because that's ridiculous, because it's our burn. And people are smart, but you're right as well. You don't want someone to fall over, and thankfully we don't live in America, and they're going to be like, this is your fault because you invited me here. But yeah, I think that you can just be like, use your common sense about it and make sure there's a disclaimer on it. Have basic public liability insurance, and try not worry too much about it, because I suppose you could worry about this for, I think if I'm feeling really anxious sometimes, like sometimes an anxious person, I'm like, oh my goodness, I've not done like all of the things, and then I realize like I'm doing all these other things, and it's better that it happens. And I think that mentality has kind of served me well, because otherwise I might have just got too stressed out by it and not done anything. So I think that, yeah, obviously, I think that would go in the blueprint. This is great. This is like a workshop for me on what will go into this blueprint.
Yeah, that's the like Kate asked that question about public life. It's a really good question, because it is something that comes up a lot. Again, it goes back to the same thing about getting funding for these things. Like, say, well, you need to be constituted official community group to get funding, but then how do you sit? And it's the same with the insurance. It's like, well, it can feel like a bit of a barrier to just like you said, like the burn is your community, belongs to you. It's your land, it's your community, it's your green spaces, and like it feels like people should be able to organise and make things happen and do stuff together as a group. But obviously, yeah, that's really interesting about the being able to get insurance yourself, and then also like if you've got other organisations getting involved, that obviously they've got their own insurance. That's really interesting.
Yeah, and I think if you just think about what level you're doing it on, because even if you think that if you're doing a bioblitz, depending on what scale you're doing it on, so say you didn't have any other organisations involved that had their own, like their kind of registered charities and things, and it's on a scale of that you're inviting people to meet up in a group to go out into nature. And yeah, I would wonder then if all, like, you know, the app Meetup and different things, whether all of these things also, if people had to have public liability insurance for every single sort of event that they, I suppose it's, thinking whether it's an event or not. I think that's something, I need to research more to figure out how people can get around it, basically. Because it's sad that people just feel intimidated and not know where to start, and then not start at all.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I'm seeing that we're 1 minute past 8. If anyone does have any burning questions that you want to ask Aimée or Natalie, please do it now. You can even just unmute yourself and speak up. But if not, I guess just is there a Bannockburn bioblitz happening in 2025?
Yes, so I'm just pinning down the date. So I kind of always, Becky, who you saw with Bug Life, I kind of always base it around her and my availability and choose a Saturday. So yes, when I have a date, I will send it to you and you can circulate it, and I'd love to see some people there. It'd be amazing, and you can come experience it firsthand.
That would be really good. That sounds excellent. And Aimée, do you have anything exciting coming up? Any events you want to plug, bioblitz or otherwise?
I literally just started my new role in my project today, so not at the minute. We do in Glasgow, TCV have a weekly citizen science group. We go out and record. We do different surveys just all across Glasgow. There's no like set regiment to it. If anybody wants more information about it, if anybody would like me to come out and do sessions within their community for anything, my email is at the end of the PowerPoint, and I'm sure Jill CC is into things. Just get in touch and I'll, do my best. I'll be getting in touch with Natalie, that's for sure.
Yay! Like to work together. It'd be great.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, okay, well that wraps up really nicely. That hour went really quickly. Thank you so much to both of our speakers for joining us even, and thank you to everyone in the audience as well for coming along. The sun is setting, but you know it's not completely gone, so there's still time to get in a quick little sunset walk and enjoy the last of the sunshine before it's gone for the day. But yeah, this has been brilliant, and as we said before, like we've recorded it. Happy to share around Natalie's video and your slides, Aimée, and things. So I'll be back in touch at some point this week, especially for people that couldn't make it today as well. So I'll just say good evening and thank you very much, everybody.